Started. Welcome and good afternoon. Thank you all for joining our one of many Winncom and Nokia First Mover webinar series. Today we will be focusing on states Nevada and Louisiana. Here to present from Winncom Technologies, our fiber product manager, Alex Cernick, and our account manager from Nokia, Brooke Coleman. If anyone has any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to add them into the chat and will be addressed at the end of the webinar. Brooke, you may take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it. So I think first off, we're just going to kind of level set and talk about the BEAD program. I know the BEAD program we've been talking about for years at this point, but finally it's gaining some momentum in the industry and gaining speed. Can you go to the next slide, Alex? So, like I said, we've been talking about this for a long time, but just want to level set and make sure that we're all sort of on the same page of which program we're talking about, what the basic rules are. This is a federal NTIA program that is being run by the states and the state broadband offices. So it's $42 billion that's going down to the states. And do want to clarify that none of these funds have been distributed out to service providers yet. That process is in the beginning stages, which is why we're having these webinars to talk about what's happening in a variety of first mover states, how it's happening, so we can, learn from those first mover states. And so the BEAD program stands for Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. And the heart and soul of this program is truly to provide internet for all. And that means to provide service of 100 over 20 megabits per second to every single resident within the country. Now, some states will be able to do this completely, and you can see the priorities are listed in order up there at the top. So the first priority is that states will be able to cover those unserved locations, which is defined as less than 25 over 3. Then the second priority is to cover those underserved locations, which is less than 100 over 20. And some states will have a challenge to meet that based on the funds that they have and the number of unserved and underserved locations that they have within their state. Texas comes to mind as being one of those states where it's going to be difficult for them to be able to cover all of the unserved locations within their state. Other states that are in a different, position might be able to get to priority number 3, which is the community anchor institutions, and that is providing a gig service to community anchor institutions throughout the state. And then other states that are even more further along or, don't have as many unserved and underserved locations will be able to use their funds for non-deployment projects. So like I said, every state's kind of in a different position with what they're going to be able to do, but that's the priorities in order for the BEAD program. And the BEAD program is a fiber first program. The preferred technology is fiber, but there are going to be some extremely high cost areas where fiber just doesn't make sense. So fixed wireless access and some other technologies will be allowable. Folks that participate in this program will need to provide a low cost option. That is the affordability piece of this program. And then finally, folks will need to bring to the table at least a 25% match. The more match you can bring to the table, the better off your scoring will be. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So there's a lot of process, as you can imagine, involved in a federal grant program. So this is sort of where we're at in the process today. And every state at this point is at least red. You can see that. So all states have had their volume 1 approved by the NTIA. What that means is each state can begin their challenge process. Some states have already finished their challenge process, and this challenge process is going to create an individualized map for every state that identifies each specific eligible location for the BEAD program. So like I said, some states have already finished and run their challenge process. Some are just in the beginning stages, but everyone is approved to at least start that process now. Then you can see the sort of diagonal sliced red states that have that fun little design on them. Those states have their volume 2s have been approved by the NTIA. And that volume 2 identifies the program rules for that state. It's like a 100-page government document identifying how they're going to score and process these grant applications. And so those states that have had their volume 2 approved can now begin their grant application windows. No one to date has opened up their grant application windows, but they can do that now that their Volume 2 has been approved. And we are expecting to see in the next couple of months a lot of these states open up those grant application windows, which is why we're holding these webinar series. The other thing to note about the Volume 2s is once those get approved, the state has 365 days to submit a final proposal to the NTIA. In that final proposal, they will have to identify who is slated to win the grant, win the grant within the state, as well as which locations are going to be serviced with the grant funding. And so the state, the state of Louisiana will have to show the NTIA how they plan to provide internet for all, what grants they plan to grant for which locations, and how they're going to cover all those dots. So that's sort of where we're at today in the program. And this program, the BEAD program, is a little different than past grant programs, specifically, the Capital Projects Fund that just came out that folks may be familiar with. One of the reasons BEAD is different is all of the compliance requirements, one of them being BABA, or Build America, Buy America. The equipment that you will have to use to build these networks will need to be Buy America compliant. And so because of that, the procure process, you can see in the timeline above, historically, the procure process would be after you win a grant, then you can procure your vendors, your construction crews, and, get all the resources and supplies and things that you need after you win your grant. But because of the BABA requirement, that procurement process is now switching to be before you apply. Because in your grant application, you are going to have to identify that you are going to be BABA compliant in the equipment and the things that you're going to be doing. There's also some NEPA requirements and some other various compliance requirements that you'll have to meet in order to apply. And you can see the excerpt listed here from Kansas. It's not simply just checking a box in order to be BABA compliant. You'll have to prove through a plan that you are BABA compliant. So you'll have to show documentation, maybe a letter of certification from your vendors, showing that you will have BABA compliant equipment in your network. And so one of the strategies that you could consider or think about is doing a pre-order strategy and using a pre-order with a BABA compliant vendor as showing an example of having BABA compliant equipment. And so what this can do for an applicant is it can lock in your pricing for your grant budget. If you place a pre-order and if it locks in the price with your vendor, that's going to leave you less room for error in your budget, which is always a good thing. It can increase your score by showing that you're going to be faster to deploy by getting ahead of the supply chain and having those orders in and already processed and ready to go. You can get a BABA certification letter from your vendor like Nokia to submit with your application, and that letter will show that you are meeting the BABA compliance requirements. And in some states, you have to spend your match faster. So another thing you could do is use this pre-order as an in-kind matching contribution to your grant, if you so choose to go that route. It's a strategy that might be helpful and could potentially earn you some more points in your application process. And it also allows applicants to sort of better manage drawing down those allowances that are tied to meeting your build out milestones, because you may only have 2 years, if that's what you say in your application, to build out these projects and meet those timelines. And so here is a sample grant budget for the BEAD program. Now, I will caveat, this budget that you see here is from the NTIA Middle Mile grant. So BEAD budgets could look a little bit different as far as structure goes, but generally speaking, this is a good example of what a grant budget could look like. So you can see the budgeted column goes through the various line items and the prices that will be needed to build your project. So the total cost of the build is that budgeted column. Then the federal column is what you are asking for from the federal government or from the state through the grant. You're asking those funds to be covered by the grant. And then the match column is what you are bringing to the table. Like I said in the beginning, the BEAD program is a requirement of at least a 25% match contribution. Now, this match could be cash or it could be in kind. In kind could be other things that you are quote unquote donating to the project. It might be something you already have in your warehouse, or it might be permits, right-of-ways, staff. It could be a variety of different things that you are essentially donating to the project. And so, like we talked about, doing a pre-order, and you can use that as an in-kind contribution. So you can see down towards the bottom at the notes where we would suggest, you write the PO has been submitted and funds are encumbered or set aside for this purchase, and the delivery of these products will happen upon receipt of the award. So that's just one idea that you could use as an in-kind contribution to your grant. So we're here today to kind of talk about these first mover states. Louisiana, from the start of this program, has been a first mover state, and they are definitely up there at the top of the pack. So they have over $1.3 billion allocated to them, and they are going to run their program through the Gumbo 2.0. And currently in Louisiana, in their process, they're at step number 3, which is their pre-qualification window opened up on June 3rd. And we're sort of in a holding period with them right now. It does say that the window will be open for 2 weeks, but that is 2 weeks from when Louisiana will release that final list of spas. If you're not familiar with the spa term, it's the sub-project area, which is a group of locations that you can apply for the grants. And so that's coming from their BEAD eligible map, which came out of their challenge process, which happened late last year. So that's sort of where they're at in the process. If you are in Louisiana and looking to apply in Louisiana, you will need to be pre-qualified before you are allowed to participate and submit an actual application when the application window opens up. We are anticipating that the application window will open up very soon. The pre-qualification window is happening, now, and will be closing relatively soon, but we don't have a final date for that. And a note that Louisiana plans to run 2 application rounds, so you can kind of see the whole process here. And like I said, since their volume 2 has been approved, their 1-year sort of shot clock has gone off, and their final proposal is due to the NTIA by December 15th of this year. So they will have to announce their grant awardees and what their plan is by December 15th. And so part of every state's volume 2, they identify their scoring criteria, and every scoring criteria is sort of different by state. Generally speaking, though, every state has those first 3 categories as it's required by the NTIA. The minimal BEAD outlay, the affordability, and the fair labor practices has to account for 75% of the state's scoring criteria. The other 25% of the state's scoring criteria is up to the state, and they can, pick and choose how they want to do it. So for Louisiana, it's a total of 664 possible points. And you can see minimal BEAD outlay and affordability are the top 2 sort of scoring criterias. Minimal BEAD outlay, if you're not familiar with that term, is basically the least amount of grant funds requested from the state. The more match you bring to the table, the more points you're going to get. The less federal funds you ask for from the state, the more points you're going to get. And then there's some other things of note. The critical resiliency of your area and your resiliency plan are important to Louisiana, as well as the speed of your network. And what's interesting here is if you apply with an XGS solution, then you automatically get all 50 of those points. Louisiana is really trying to be in the forefront of the future technologies and make these networks future-proof. You'll also get some more points the faster you build it, the speed to deployment. So the faster you build, the more points that you can get. And then obviously the BABA compliance and local and tribal coordination is super important too. So you can kind of see here the scoring criteria. And there's a lot of, sometimes there's different quirks across the different states. So this is just a slide to identify what those different quirks are for Louisiana. Louisiana is expected to be fiber. They specifically call out XGS-PON as a preferred, technology method. But there are going to be some high cost areas, and they understand that, so they will consider a couple of options. But they will not specify what that extremely high cost number is until after the first round of applications has been received and reviewed. So A note here too, the project area definition, like we talked about, is a SPA. That's a sub-project area that the broadband office will create. They plan to create about 2,000 SPAs throughout the state, and applicants can propose to service any number of SPAs, including non-contiguous SPAs, and applicants can submit multiple applications, and they may include the same SPA into 2 separate applications. So if you're planning on applying into Louisiana, just a couple of things to keep in mind. And you also will need to be pre-qualified. There are 2 application rounds planned, and funds are planned to be reimbursed with 10% of the subgrant award being provided once 10% of locations have been built. So also, if you plan on hopefully winning a grant here, that's how those funds will be able to be distributed to you. You'd have to build a certain percentage of your land, of your locations, and then you can get that same percentage of funds. You will have to have your design certified by a PE, and you will have to provide 3 years of audited financials to the state. So those are just some high-level things about that are specific to Louisiana. And now we can kind of compare and contrast that with Nevada, who is another first mover state. And Nevada also has had their volume 2 approved recently. So this is sort of where they're at in the process of things. They have a request for applications, a pre-solicitation planning process right now. Their challenge process concluded back at the end of March. And so you will need to be pre-qualified in the state of Nevada. So you can see there's about 2 pages worth of information that they are looking for an applicant to be pre-qualified. And then they call it an RFA, request for applications, and they're going to submit that out to the public and ask them for the public to submit their applications in. And then they'll go through the scoring process that they have, and sort of an appeals process. So they format their process a little bit differently than Louisiana, but we are expecting them to be opening up their applications here soon as well. And then their scoring criteria is also different from Louisiana. But like I said, the minimal BEAD outlay, the affordability, the fair labor practices, all has to account for 75% of their scoring criteria. Affordability, interesting enough, is actually more points than the minimal BEAD outlay here. And they have a total of 100 possible points. And you can see the speed to deployment is important, but it's only 1 point. But I will say that every point counts, especially when you only have 100 points on the table. These state broadband offices will have to score applications objectively. That is their mission. And some, applications may lose only by 1 or 2 points. It's going to be a very tight game. So maximizing your points and getting every point that you can is going to be critical to success. So some other things that they're going to look at is your capacity of your network, and your, how technically sound is your solution, is your build. Affordability is going to be important. And there's those 2 categories down there, actually, affordability. So affordability is a huge priority for Nevada, so something to definitely consider when applying here. And then I just have one more slide on Nevada, kind of talking about the different quirks that are specific to Nevada. They obviously, like others, are a fiber first program. The State Broadband Office will provide an estimated total to connect each location in the RPA. So if you're not familiar, the RPA is the the regional project area. I couldn't find it on this crazy slide. So the RPA is the regional project area, how they're defining the different areas in which you can apply for. And so yeah, each RPA is its own application. So all applications for that regional project area will be scored separately. So that's something to keep in mind as you are applying here. There will be 1 application round. You will have to be pre-qualified as well. And the disbursement of funds are a little bit different here. They will disperse based on completion of a designated milestone, but they didn't define what those milestones are. And again, You'll have to have your design certified by a PE. And interesting, the state of Nevada, you have to provide 5 years of audited financials. So that can be a challenge for some folks. So definitely keep that in mind as you're preparing, because that takes some time. So yeah, those are some differences between Louisiana and Nevada that we're seeing right now. And over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Brooke. That was fantastic. I think you provided excellent context for any customer who is thinking of applying now or is looking for the second window to apply. Over the last 6 months, I've worked with WISPs, tribes, rural telephone cooperatives as they navigate this same process. I'd like to share Winncom's strategy along with some new programs designed to better assist you through this, for lack of a better word, complex journey. Now, in previous webinars, I used a coin analogy to illustrate our BEAD strategy, which is twofold. One side focuses on product strategy. So as a value-added distributor, Winncom brings nearly 30 years of experience in delivering eco-center solutions backed with engineering and technical support. Our offerings include BABA certified products that support both active and passive fiber, along with related accessories, such as Nokia, and as Brooke mentioned, that XGS PON solution. We can also meet all your fiber needs, from design to product sourcing, with a wide range of BABA certified fiber optic cables and fiber adjacent accessories. Now, and additionally, we can also provide BEAD waiver approved electronics and comprehensive infrastructure and networking solutions. Now, our goal is very simple. It's to collaborate with industry leading manufacturers like Nokia and assist you in that vendor selection process through consultation and product design support. The second side of the coin is enhanced services, which begins with our mapping of your expansion plan. In many of my conversations, there's been some confusion on how to obtain cost quest information to determine if a particular area is eligible for funding. Now, to assist you with this, we've developed a cost quest walkthrough document. If that is of interest, please reach out either through comments or at the emails provided at the end, and I can certainly provide you with that document. Now, additionally, and you can see in this slide, we can help you determine areas of eligibility by using our proprietary HEX QGIS mapping capabilities. Now, as illustrated in this particular side, I chose an example. It was Upshur County in West Virginia. Now, the program we leverage has access to the entire United States. This is just an example of West Virginia. Now, on the image on the left, you'll see yellow hexagons. And in this particular area, they represent areas that are unserved or underserved. Again, less than the underserved capacities. Now, each hexagon also represents a square distance of 0.2 miles. Now, in the second image, I've highlighted project areas that meet the criteria of the 80% rule. The third image displays existing technology. Red denotes fiber, green for CBRS, which can either be GAA or PAL, and blue is for DSL. Now, the final image showcases pre-existing funding vehicles. So imperative in our network design strategy is to understand if there is areas that have already allocated funding. Now, in this particular example, it's RDOF, but it could be capital projects, it could be up to 10 different variations. So again, when you're starting this process, engage us in collaboration, and we can provide detailed analysis of target areas to reach out. 80%, we can highlight existing technologies, and then again, showcase any existing previous funding vehicles. Now, as part of our value-added service, each hexagon can be exported into Google Earth, and that's with a KML file. Each hexagon also details the number of locations, the units, corresponding GPS coordinates, the cost quest level 8 ID numbers, along with the number of BEAD eligible housing units with capacities below 100 megabits per second. With this planning tool, we can easily help you determine the right technology and strategy for your application. With our grant writing services, we can collaborate with your engineers to design your project and develop a comprehensive plan of action. Now, using a high-level design, we can create detailed project budgets that lists everything you need for implementation. Now, this could include the executive summary, the project, the budget narratives, budget spreadsheets, financial information that's collected, and then we submit that digital application and answer any questions. And additionally, we offer post-award compliancy services, which encompasses compliancy consultant, performance reporting, invoice reimbursements, and closeout reporting. And all that's imperative to make sure that those funds don't get clawed back and you're in compliance. I wanted to use this slide to showcase just some timelines of how long some of these processes take. So in the grant writing process, the first thing starts with a checklist. Louisiana is a great example. They provided an ISP document, which was about 5 pages worth of questions. I'll showcase that on the next slide. But the first step here is essentially collecting all that information. Once it's collected and you're ready to move forward, it takes anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. And the variation, as you can see through the estimated project timelines, it's processing the applications. The more information you have, the quicker that process becomes. And then there's checks and balances built into this with a Q&A quality control process where everything is audited, optimized, and then submitted, where we'll also answer any questions that come up. And as I mentioned previously, we have that post-award compliancy piece to this. What I referenced in regards to Louisiana, it was complicated. It was a little bit all over the place. So with this grant writing checklist, we made it easy. It's in uniform sections that are more logical and easy to pull information. For example, the project scope, the service areas, business and operational plans. So again, if you are interested in moving forward with grant writing, please reach out either through comments or there's emails at the end of this. I can provide this checklist. Even if you don't use our services, it's a great way to organize yourself. Now, in addition to this, to bring it full circle, we also offer professional engineering services. So for us, this gives a force multiplier, for the lack of a better word. We can put boots on the ground in all 50 states. It gives us access to over 115 design engineers, pole technicians, project managers, OSP node and design drafters, where we could leverage this capability to be able to provide high-level and low-level fiber designs, along with on-site analysis, support, and mapping if required. Now, as Brooke mentioned, part of every requirement is PE stamp drawings. And we tried to simplify that as well. What you see here are 3 SKUs. They're listed on our website, but we have systematized, for lack of a better word, PE stamp drawings, where we can either audit something that you have pre-existing, or we can literally start from scratch, develop those PE drawings for you, and then those packages there are based on the size and scale of what's encompassing. Now, we tie this all together with our financial partner Leaf, and this can help from 2 different perspectives. First of which, grant writing and professional engineering are upfront costs. So the goal here is to lessen the burden to the CapEx constraint or CapEx hit. So we can take those costs, instead of having it due immediately, we can carry that over a 3-year period of time. Again, the goal with our financial services is to provide a lever which allows you to manipulate cost. The second aspect was mentioned by Brooke as well, and that's regard to pre-purchasing, pre-buying. with our partner, we can carry those costs over a 5-year period of time. So in certain circumstances, this allows you to manipulate that 25% match requirement by leveraging prepaying. And then again, you can carry those costs over a longer duration of time. Our mission essentially, again, is to streamline this process for you. It gives you one centralized point of contact for your account manager, and then we have a dedicated team of BEAD experts that can help with mapping, can help with grant writing, professional engineering, but it gives you a single point of contact and a company with the ability to turnkey those solutions, along with offering best-in-breed technologies like Nokia. What I'm showcasing here is a static example of our BEAD portal. If you have not registered for this, I would certainly recommend it. It's got a lot of great information. So first of which, what we're looking at here is the resources tab. This is our 8th webinar for BEAD. So all that is listed there. So if there is a topic that you'd like to revisit or a concept you'd like to learn more about, there is a lot of fantastic information there. All the first mover webinar series, say that 3 times fast, is listed here, along with what you can see right under that was our fiber panel question, which talked about aerial versus burial fiber and how that relates to BEAD. We've talked about how to work with Cost Quest, how to come up with offensive and defensive strategies. And again, all that great information is listed there. On the supplier and product section, we have a list of all of our eligible suppliers. And again, our goal is to provide that eco center type of positioning where you can see individual SKUs, you can see data sheets, and that corresponding information. Services highlights a little bit more in detail the grant writing services, the professional engineering services, the financial services. So again, if those are of interest, please register, and there's a lot of great information on what those next steps look like. And then a lot of the customers I'm talking to, they're not just doing applications in one state, it's usually multiple states over multiple counties. So under the state funding overview, you can see your individual state, how much money was allocated to it, what those timelines look like, where we are in process, if we're in a challenge stage or a rebuttal stage, or we're moving into pre-registration. All that's listed there with hyperlinks to the websites, to the state's websites, to their challenge process, to the rebuttal processes, and then we also include volume 1, volume 2, and any other corresponding information. And the last aspect here is we have included all the waivers. So the unavailability waiver for electronics, we list out what products are eligible in the rules, what that relates to on the BABA certification for active fiber and passive fiber, where it's manufactured in the US with 55% components derived from here, what the de minimis waiver looks like for infrastructure products. If you have a part of your strategy being hybrid, where you're looking for fixed wireless access, towers, infrastructure that supports it, will fall under that, which I believe is 5% of the total project up to $1 million. So again, a great resource to kind of bring everything full circle. So what I would suggest for next steps is to, again, reach out through chat, or we've listed some email addresses here. Brooke's email is here along with ours, but I would recommend a consultation call where we can go over exactly what your strategy looks like. For the offensive strategy, have you done the mapping? Have you started the grant writing process? Have you obtained PE stamp drawings? Do you need professional engineering services? Do you need high-level or low-level fiber designs? Again, let's set up a call where we can walk through all of that and come up with an action plan that works for you. And then the last hyperlink there, that's the URL to the BEAD portal. And when you get there, just put in your username, put in a password, and that goes over to me for approval, which usually takes an hour or less. So with that said, we'll open it up to questions. Dawn, did we get any questions we can kind of go through?
And thanks, Alex. We actually have 3 questions up here. I will start with the first one for you. Does the 25% match encompass in-kind contributions such as product services and administrative fees specific to the project?
So yeah, I can take that one.
Sure.
Yes, you can use a combination of cash or in kind for your matching contribution. I know every sort of grant program is a little different with that. Some programs it's only cash. Some you can use in kind, and for the BEAD program, you can use a combination of cash and in kind. So if we can go back to the grant budget just for a visualization of what this could look like is you can use any sort of asset that you have, that you own, that you want to quote unquote donate to the project. You can see and maybe I didn't explain this clearly, in the budget here, the very last column is type. So you see when we talked about for using the equipment as a pre-order, you can use that as an in-kind contribution because you haven't necessarily paid for that equipment yet because it's a pre-order, but you will pay for it once you receive it upon receipt of the award and once that PO officially gets processed when you want to receive that equipment. But that's in kind at the moment because it's not necessarily cash. You can see in the other matching options are listed as cash, but you could also easily change those to be in kind if you, let's say you have staff that will write your grant within your company, and you're going to donate their time and their salary as an in-kind contribution. You just change that type to, instead of cash, it would say in kind. If you are, kind of donating that as an in-kind contribution to your grant. And like I said, the more match you can bring to the table, the more points you will get. So any creative ways or any creative solutions you can come up with to try to bring that match dollar number higher is going to help you in the long run.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's a very thorough answer. Thank you very much. Second question, as we begin the grant application process, what initial steps should we take and how can Winncom support us through their program?
Okay. Obviously, I can take that one. So I talked a little bit about that on some of the previous slides, but I think it all starts with setting up a call and having a consultative meeting. Where are you so far? What have you put together, collected? What is your offensive and defensive strategies? Once we get that understanding, a lot of these they start with the design aspect of it, where again we can use that QGIS mapping program. What that gives essentially is targeted areas. So if we're building out a fiber design, if we're working with a fixed wireless access company, again, you can see GPS coordinates, you can see how many locations, how many units, and how many are BEAD eligible. But it gives a great planning resource to figure out where do you concentrate your expansion plan. Now, most states haven't highlighted what their high cost areas are. I don't believe that's going to happen for a little bit down the road, maybe even after the first application process. But again, we can help you with that mapping and help you with the design. From professional engineering to grant writing, we have a host of different check sheets or documents that walk you through the process. And again, our goal is to make this easy. We want to be able to provide a streamlined approach, and we've got a service in place, literally almost for everything.
Perfect. Last but not least here, what are the BABA requirements for fiber, and are Nokia's products certified to meet these standards?
Yes, I'm happy to say that they are. We have onshored manufacturing in order to meet those requirements. So from the electronic standpoint, if you are purchasing or using an OLT line card, optic pluggable, or an ONT, a standalone ONT, then they need to be BABA compliant and they need to be built here in America. The NTIA is working on a website to be able to publish which companies and which products specifically are certified Buy America compliant. That website is not live yet, but we are hopeful that it will come, and it'll be a great resource for people to check out who is compliant and what sort of products specifically are compliant. And if you are purchasing a product that I did not mention, then it is waived. and it is does not need to be Buy America compliance. Like an IP router, for example, is an example of something that is waived. So, so yes, hopefully that answers that question.
Well, thank you, Brooke, and thank you, Alex. As a quick reminder to everyone, that's the end of the questions, and we'll be providing a copy of the slide presentations and the video when the upload is complete. So please keep an eye out in your inbox for those, as well as future announcements on our First Mover series as more states are added.